American oligarchs have infiltrated the White House and the U.S. media. In this special edition of The Listening Post, we examine the implications of that. Starting with the news organizations that have become the playthings of the super rich.
Let's negotiate in front of the media.
At the expense of their journalism, their credibility.
Sounds like a good deal to me, Mr. President.
Why are these billionaires gobbling up more and more media outlets? It's not as though they're philanthropists. And Donald Trump's two-sided relationship with the Fourth Estate.
Quiet.
How is it that he is so critical of the White House press corps, yet so accessible? The American media landscape is growing more concentrated. Some of the country's most storied news organizations are being bought up by a tiny group of elites, putting those outlets at risk. The buyers are more likely to cozy up to power, the Trump White House, than to speak truth to it. These buyouts tend to go one of two ways. There are the high-profile acquisitions that give Trump allies like the Ellison family control of a network such as CBS, where the editorial changes are quick in coming. Then there is the more cunning kind of rebrand under someone like Jeff Bezos, who bought the Washington Post back in 2013 but slow-played the changes before eventually tempering the paper's once critical coverage of Trump. The president keeps strong-arming media outlets he does not like, and the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran has exacerbated things. Trump has said that certain journalists should be charged with treason. His lieutenants have lectured reporters on what patriotic coverage looks like and threatened to strip news outlets of their licenses if they do not get in line. In the second half of this program, we will speak with two White House reporters from opposite ends of the political spectrum about what has changed during this presidency. But first, the media institutions landing in the hands of billionaires who are invested in many things. Quality journalism, not among them.
Billionaires that have hollowed out media have made their billions in a system which values profit-seeking and not democracy.
We want to be in the truth business. We want to be in the trust business.
If there's only one newspaper left printing, it's going to be us.
I would say at this point, most of U.S. media is owned by oligarchs.
We're working to become a national and to some degree global newspaper.
It's very clear that billionaires don't necessarily see media ownership as a charity or a philanthropy, but for many of them, it's a business venture.
We are in the business of building long-term value for shareholders, and I think we've done that successfully.
They want to see the money and be on top of the next wave of business, not necessarily the next Watergate. They're interested in weaponizing their connection to a government that will give them the tools they need.
And that is not a new phenomenon. The American media space has been shaped by tycoons of one kind or another for a century and a half.
Many people have the sense of acquisitive possessiveness, but William Randolph Hearst was the only man ever able to indulge it to the hilt.
Through men like William Randolph Hearst and Joseph Pulitzer, and the newspapers they owned starting back in the late 1800s. Fast forward 150 years to today, the internet age, and more than half of the traffic on major news sites in the US last year, more than 25 billion visits, were to outlets controlled by just 7 families, like the Ellisons and the Murdochs, or their corporate entities. They now own news organizations that, due to fierce competition for dwindling online ad revenues, were ripe for the picking, often at the cost of their editorial independence. The oligarchs know that the return on their investment under a president like Donald Trump is political influence. It increases with each outlet they acquire.
If we look at it by the newspapers, we have Jeff Bezos at the Washington Post. We have the Boston Globe being owned by John Henry. We have the Los Angeles Times owned by Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong. And if you look at TV networks, one of the most notable billionaire owners is Rupert Murdoch. There's so much of the media landscape he owns. He is truly one of those media moguls of the past with News Corp, with Fox. Now you look at the Ellison family owning Paramount Skydance and wanting to do further consolidation. That to me feels more like what Murdoch did with building a true media empire.
It's not just billionaires, it's not just bad apples. It's a system of private equity, of corporations run by the billionaires or tied to the billionaires that have hollowed out media in the last decades. Billionaires like to use the tools of media to advance their personal interests, which we've seen through time and history, but it's at a scale now without countervailing force in so many instances that it's become dangerous for democracy.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
The Trump regime taking control of the U.S. government, I think it created both an opportunity but also pressure for these individual oligarchic owners of U.S. media to sort of merge their interests with the state. They have much larger businesses, in some cases defense contracts, billion-dollar contracts that have nothing to do with news. And if news becomes inconvenient to their larger businesses, this is bad for their shareholders. And most of these CEOs are paid in stock, so it's bad for their personal finances as well. And so when you get a Jeff Bezos in charge of the Washington Post, it should surprise no one that he says, hey, what we'd really like to cover is the economy and capitalism and the glories of capitalism.
The Washington Post is a case study of the new era of billionaire media ownership. In 2013, the paper was threatened by insolvency. Jeff Bezos used his fortune to swoop in and rescue it. Initially, Bezos did not interfere editorially. In Donald Trump's first term, the Post stood up to the president. Just prior to the 2024 election, though, Bezos changed course. He announced that for the first time in 30 years, the paper would not endorse a presidential candidate.
It wasn't going to influence the election either way. No independent voter in Pennsylvania at that time was going to say, oh, is that what the Washington Post thinks? Well, then I'll do that.
That decision quickly cost the Post around 250,000 subscribers, roughly 10% of its paying customers. Then Bezos announced an ideological shift, that he was ordering the Post's editorial board to focus on, quote, personal liberties and free markets, meaning that certain voices and perspectives, the kind that might challenge Bezos and his corporate beliefs, would no longer be platformed. And the Washington Post is not just any American newspaper. In the 1970s, it was considered the gold standard for journalism in the U.S.
Some people have even gone so far as to talking about Congress impeaching the president.
When its reporting on the Watergate scandal brought down a president, Richard Nixon. The Post has gone from the glory days of Woodward and Bernstein to the age of Bezos.
Right.
Marty Baron was the Post's executive editor for part one of the Bezos era. He left the paper in 2021.
Our conversations with Jeff Bezos after he acquired the Post in 2013, I think were very good. He set out a very ambitious strategy and vision for the Washington Post. He said that he would give us runway, that he would invest in us. He also committed to giving us our independence, and he did that. He did not interfere at all in our news coverage, and we expanded. He was long perceived as a political enemy of Donald Trump for one reason and one reason only, and that was the coverage of the Washington Post. He defended us, he stood by us throughout my time at the Washington Post, but then when it appeared that Donald Trump would re-enter the White House, he started to work at really repairing his relationship with Trump.
It's been described a bloodbath. The Washington Post has laid off more than 300 journalists.
Save the Post! 1 year into Donald Trump's second presidency, Jeff Bezos gutted over a third of the Post's newsroom through cuts to multiple departments. The justification from executive editor Matt Murray, the need for a strategic reset.
Great journalism is central, but the journalism alone isn't enough.
The notion that the Post's journalists too often wrote from one perspective, for one slice of the audience. The Washington Post was hemorrhaging money, around $100 million a year. But for Jeff Bezos, that's pocket change. He's worth around $250 billion.
What's interesting about the Washington Post layoffs is there's a broader understanding outside of the media bubble about how important that news organization is. Day in and day out, they have covered amazing stories about the administration. They're the true local paper of DC, which is the political center of America. And so clearly you would think that that paper would be producing some of the best journalists of our time and wanting to produce incredible stories. That also includes foreign correspondents. The Washington Post had people posted all over the world. They've very much retreated from that.
Virtually all of the Black editorial staff is gone. Karen Attiah was summarily dismissed. They got rid of effectively all of their coverage of race and ethnicity. That's all gone. And the message I think that's been sent to that newsroom is that they have an audience of two, Jeff Bezos and Donald Trump. And I'm not sure that that's a comfortable place to be if you're a journalist that just wants to do news and bring the truth without fear or favor.
I'm terribly upset about what's happened there. I think it's a disgrace, actually, what has occurred. I think there's been managerial malpractice, even ownership malpractice over the last 5 years or so. They call it a reset, looks more like a retreat to me. Bezos changed the direction of the editorial page and the opinion pages generally, such that there are now essentially no opinion columnists who are to the left of center, not even a little bit to the left of center. We had a motto, they still have a motto at the Washington Post, democracy dies in darkness.
Knowing keeps us free.
In fact, Jeff Bezos, the owner, called it not a motto, but a mission statement. And I would like to hear the leadership of the Post and the ownership of the Post, in the form of Jeff Bezos, articulate what they want the news organization to be today and tomorrow.
Jeff Bezos has remade the Post, changes that Donald Trump would approve of. But he does not have the sway in the White House that another rising media mogul has, Silicon Valley billionaire Larry Ellison. That's Ellison in the Oval Office, right next to another pro-Trump, pro-Israel media owner, Rupert Murdoch. Ellison moved into the mainstream media business last year, buying Paramount, which owns CBS. He and his son David then set their sights on CNN through the acquisition of its parent company, Warner Brothers. At CBS, the Ellisons quickly installed Bari Weiss as the editor-in-chief. Weiss had made her name online through her conservative publication, The Free Press.
The more elite the institutions, the more the people that populate them shouted globalize the Intifada. The more they glorified evil.
But Weiss had exactly zero experience working in television news. What the Ellisons saw in her, though, was a perfect fit. Weiss is a self-described Zionist fanatic.
Bari Weiss, who was a very ideological conservative actor inside of the New York Times, and then her Substack gets suddenly acquired for hundreds of millions of dollars and then given control of CBS News. And you can see the immediate result of that. You can see CBS News suddenly look at 60 Minutes as not an independent journalistic bulwark of truth and, without fear or favor. And suddenly it's got some fear and favor. Suddenly it's being limited in what it can do, in what it can show, in what it can say.
Bari Weiss has overhauled the CBS newsroom, remaking it in her own image.
I think it's about redrawing the lines of what falls in the 40-yard lines of acceptable debate.
And she has not stayed behind the scenes the way news execs usually do.
You will not agree with everything you hear tonight or in any of these other broadcasts. And that is exactly the point.
Weiss has brought in a range of new commentators, virtually all of them conservative, pro-Israel, and pro-Iran war.
Because what you want to do is you want to escalate at this point to defeat this horrible regime.
And she has imposed her ideological stamp on CBS through who she has entrusted with the top anchor job there, Tony Dokoupil.
I'm Tony Dokoupil, the anchor of the CBS Evening News. Hold me to it.
Tony Dokoupil, CBS News, has a mandate to go out into the country to meet the real Americans because Bari Weiss feels that CBS has been infected with liberal bias. What's interesting is that the ratings of Tony Dokoupil's CBS Evening News plummeted in the first week or two because people, I think, are not stupid.
For the record, I do think I'd have this job even if the other guys won.
Yeah, but at a lesser salary.
He's perceived as Bari Weiss's kind of puppet, and the range of choices and voices that are brought on in times of crisis, for example, like Iran, they are putting on people who are pro-war.
The Iranian people, what are you hearing from them tonight? We know they're celebrating. What's the feeling?
It's the Iranian people that have been telling me over and over and over again, we want this.
So far in her role of running the company, we've seen 60 Minutes fall in the respect that they have internally and also lose talent.
I'm Anderson Cooper. That story and more next week on another edition of 60 Minutes.
Anderson Cooper not signing is a huge example, and 60 Minutes is seen as one of the gold standards of good journalism. It is a true TV magazine, a magazine brought to life in video that still amasses so much attention and power in our fragmented media landscape.
A CBS News producer is jumping ship and shared a fiery letter against the network's leadership.
This is really a severe blow, it seems, to the network's credibility here.
And another thing that she's done is essentially alienate and polarize talent there who have been these longtime respected leaders.
We contacted the Washington Post and CBS asking for comment. Neither responded. The new owners at both outlets are driven by something that has more to do with political clout than journalism. And the real prize, the Ellison family's pursuit of CNN, is still out there. While still a long way from being finalized, that sale cannot happen quickly enough for the Trump administration.
More fake news from CNN. The sooner David Ellison takes over that network, the better.
And should that deal go ahead, the U.S. news landscape will grow even more concentrated, even less reflective of the interests of ordinary Americans.
So the deal I'm thinking about, Larry, let's negotiate in front of the media.
And more in line with the personal agendas of the billionaires who still wield so much power in America.
What do you think?
Sounds like a good deal to me, Mr. President.
Yeah, he can afford it too.
I've been in this business for a long time, just about half a century. I've seen every type of ownership. I wish there were a perfect form of ownership, but I haven't seen one yet. Wealthy individuals like Jeff Bezos, they have all sorts of conflicts of interest because they have other businesses, and that's a point of vulnerability. And then you look at like private equity firms or hedge funds. They hope to extract as much cash as quickly as possible from them. They have no concern about the long-term future and no commitment to the mission of journalism. And then you look at the nonprofit model. And most of these nonprofits are going to foundations to help support them. And the foundations, they're the elite too. They are controlled by people who are essentially part of the elite. So there is no perfect form of ownership.
That is the context, the increasingly concentrated ownership picture in American media. Then there are the changes that are taking place below in the daily task of covering national politics there. In this, his second term, Donald Trump has installed a press operation that is at once more open and more hostile. His presidency offers reporters extraordinary levels of access, while he repeatedly attacks news outlets, threatening them in various ways. The White House routinely sidelines and shuns established news organizations while making room for a new breed of more sympathetic or supine media types. The byproduct is a White House press corps that looks different, sounds different, and works under a new set of rules. To get an idea of how that system functions, or not, we spoke with two journalists who cover the presidency from opposite corners of the media world. Hugo Lowell is a White House correspondent for The Guardian, a liberal, mainstream news outlet. John Fredericks also covers the White House, but does it through a conservative radio talk show. He describes himself as part of the MAGA media movement.
I'm a White House correspondent with The Guardian in Washington. I cover the Trump administration and its national security and legal policy. I've covered Trump for about 5 years.
We're coming up to the briefing room now, where there's exactly the space where Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, will brief. There's space in here for a bunch of reporters.
My name is John Fredericks. I'm a TV and radio talk show host. I get to cover the president. Occasionally, I get to go into the Oval Office. I was a Trump supporter even before he announced in 2015.
What's your time frame to make a decision on running for president, Mr. Trump?
I would say June, July. And I think people are going to be very shocked.
So I've been around the block, a Trump supporter, part of the MAGA media movement.
Wow.
The approach to the press is certainly more combative overall. We've seen the White House pull the Associated Press out of the press pool. The AP is not allowed to go in with the rest of the pool. And certainly you see his senior advisors be very combative towards the media on Twitter and on Truth Social and on other social media. And they'll consistently attack them.
This White House communications team has made significant changes. The first is they control the press pool rotation that covers the president on a daily basis. I think they've opened it up to other media other than, the very left-wing entrenched legacy media. And probably the most significant thing is they opened up a seat on a rotation basis to what they call new media, which means you get to sit and ask the first question.
In the White House, we are fully embracing new media.
They call it the new media seat, and I think this is the biggest difference that has been implemented in this White House. Typically, it's someone who works for a conservative outlet or an outlet that is friendly towards the president and Republicans. Podcasters, right-wing hosts, people who do streaming on their phones. And all of a sudden, the White House has implemented this new seat for someone that they are sympathetic to and will typically ask them easier questions that the admin can then use to play off and deliver their messaging.
A lot of legacy media, some people in the front row, seem to want to call this an affordability crisis right now, forgetting the fact that over the last 4 years.
When Eric Bolling asked Caroline Levitt the question about gas prices and affordability, he had this long preamble that effectively set up a straw man to say, the media is reporting on this affordability crisis, but it's not real. The White House, what is your response? And Caroline quite effectively uses that to deliver her messaging.
Well, it's a great question, Eric, and it's a point of frustration for the president.
The question that was asked by Eric, I could have asked in 20 seconds. He took 2.5 minutes because he wanted to make a statement. They want to get on TV. They want to be able to make a statement. They want to get clicks. They want to put it on social media. I'm not criticizing him. I wouldn't do it.
The role of the media in that room is supposed to be to hold the White House to account. It's to, grill the press secretary and say, what is the White House doing about these issues that, are affecting Americans' lives every day? I think really what it shows is the White House trying to find new ways to make it seem like they have control of the narrative.
Yeah, because you're a left-wing hack. You're not a reporter.
You mentioned that you're part of the MAGA media movement. You've even had a few photos taken with Trump. Are you concerned that people might see your journalism as untrustworthy, that you are pro-Trump rather than...
I could care less. Most of the people that are in there have an agenda. That when you sit there and say, are you a journalist? The questions the left-wing liberal media asks every day when I'm in there, the majority of them are gotcha ridiculous. So they have their own agenda. At least I'm honest about it. I'm a Trump supporter, and I ask questions that I believe are of interest to my audience, which is, very informed.
Trump is certainly really accessible to reporters now, between the phone calls and the number of events he does in the Oval Office, which he opens up to the pool. He also truths on social media at all times. So it is in many ways true that he is much, much more accessible to individual reporters than has been the case in previous administrations. Obviously, the one major difference is that Trump picks up reporter calls, and a lot of people on the Trump beat have the president's personal number, and in particularly newsy situations, for instance, the start of the conflict in Iran, you see a lot of reporters dial up Trump, and Trump's quite happy to engage with these reporters.
Hey there. So I just got off the phone with President Trump. It was a 9-minute phone interview, and we talked just about the war.
It's a very convenient vehicle for Trump because he knows that if a reporter calls him up, it's a very, very short interview. They probably get a couple questions in. Trump can end the interview at any time. He can say whatever he wants. And because it is a conversation with the president, that reporter will go back to their respective outlet, and that will be the biggest item for that news outlet that day.
I mean, the number of journalist interviews he does one-on-one is pretty incredible. I mean, it's every single week he'll talk to somebody. When he is on the plane traveling with the press pool, it's very rare that he doesn't come into the cabin and take questions.
Hello, everybody. So we have a lot of things to talk about, but there's not much I can say to you about him. So
I mean, this is the most accessible president.
Trump has insulted reporters in several different settings.
Sir, you talked about selling oil.
About free sailors. Can you say why you're
very obnoxious person?
Why do you blame the Biden administration?
Because they let him in. Are you stupid? Are you a stupid person?
I think the general takeaway from that is it seems very unpresidential for Trump to be throwing ad hominem insults at reporters, especially women.
You're a loud person.
And yet at the same time, the country kind of shrugs when this happens because it's kind of already baked into his brand.
Quiet.
People see Trump as this freewheeling, spitballing president, and the White House likes to play into this, and Caroline Leavitt will defend Trump and say, well, he's just calling the shots as it is.
What did the president mean when he called reporter piggy?
Look, the president is very frank and honest with everyone in this room.
President Trump is not going to tolerate stupid gotcha questions, and so he's going to call you out. So if you're willing to engage in that form with the president of the free world, and you want to ask a stupid gotcha question in order to get your soundbite on your network and make it go viral on social media so that you can get notoriety and clicks, he's going to call you out, as he should. I would do the same thing.
Trump has really tried to pressure the press in new ways in his second term. He has launched a series of lawsuits. He has had his FCC commissioner, Brendan Carr, threaten to pull broadcast licenses. And the point of this, obviously, is to pressure the press into giving him more favorable coverage.
There is absolutely things you can do to lose your licenses. And we have a lot of investigations going right now at the FCC.
So you have these two ideas of the White House saying, on the one hand, we are very transparent and we have a lot of freedom for reporters. And on the other hand, you have Trump engaging in litigation against media companies.
President Trump is suing the New York Times, its publisher, and 4 journalists for libels.
I actually don't think those ideas exist in tension with each other. I think that it's all kind of the same. Both things can be true at the same time. It's certainly true that access is far greater to Trump than it was under Biden or under Obama or under even kind of previous administrations dating back decades. I also think it's probably upfront and quite honest for the Trump administration to say at the same time, yeah, we're suing you because we don't like your coverage.
I mean, do you realize how many credentials the Biden administration revoked when they got in there? Do you have any idea the number? If they're getting very nasty, unfavorable things, they have the right to revoke your credentials. I think the president has every right to defend himself if he's defamed. I mean, we have laws in this country that are against that, and then you let judges and juries decide who is right and who is wrong. Certainly, any administration that finds certain outlets to be hostile, uninformed, and their objective is to not get the truth out, but it is to find a way to embarrass the administration, well, then they have every right to revoke their credentials. I was revoked by the Biden administration. I didn't say a word. I never complained. I didn't say a word. Took my hard pass away, no problem. I understand it. I get it. I didn't say anything. Like, man up. This is the way it works.
And I never get a fair break from the fake news, which is back there. That's a lot of fake news. Yeah.
You've been watching a special edition of our program on journalism in the U.S. and what it is up against these days. A White House that is out to change the way that politics there is covered, and the help that Donald Trump is getting on that from some monopolistic American billionaires.